there anything else you wanted? Oh, the background footage.
Oh, that was all and then nows.
Yeah, and that's
if you don't know what and then now is.
Yeah, and then now is this series, ongoing series of about a minute where we took, you know, slices of I would plop the camera in a place, wait for a moment, catch it on film, move my camera to the next place. So we'd stitch together these 5-second moments into like a just experiential collage
you
of what
put the camera for as many minutes as you felt like you maybe might have captured something. So
usually around 2 minutes.
And then I can usually find about 10 seconds of some kind of action of walking by, just people watching something that you've captured.
Yeah.
And then we took those little segments of these 10 seconds, made a whole minute.
Yeah.
And we put it into our episodes.
Yeah.
And then call it and then
now.
And then
now, because to emphasize the present moment. So that we do have all this footage of just Luzhou city streets that worked as a background for what you were doing here, and it kind of illustrated the potential of having this library that we can call up at any time, but also the weakness of relying on just a library is because in an ideal world where like we were producing this video, maybe you would have drawn on the library to find these moments that fit what you were talking about, but then instead of just like filling in whatever when we didn't have a specific video to go with something you were saying, if maybe you're saying something about like, is this brains? We don't have any footage of people eating brains,
right?
So we'd go out and get it,
right?
But that's not the level of production we're at right now, so we didn't do that. But I think if we build this library and then actually go out and look for more specific moments, like rather than just like walking down a street, but like, is somebody eating brains? Is a cat?
That's what you do.
Is a cat doing things?
Yeah, that's what you do. And like we had at least one staff photographer working at the newspaper in New York, and they aren't like 100% of their working hour filming. Like they have exact things to film.
Yeah.
A lot of their time was even on the clock, even if they weren't in the office, they were on their way to work or not even out on a Saturday night. They've always got their camera there and they're collecting and collecting and collecting.
Yeah.
So that when you're at work and somebody says like, hey, so-and-so, I need a cabbie getting out and buying a hot dog, I got that.
Yeah. And so that's like stock photography is actually really, I mean, it's silly, but I think it's also very challenging. I read this interview
it can be artistic, but it also could be commercial garbage.
It can be like very cheesy too sometimes. But I read an interview with a couple who are both photographers and then now models, because it's not cost effective to hire models for stock photography. It's more cost effective to photograph yourself or your partner.
Yeah.
So they built their own little business photographing themselves in stock photography situations of like man yelling at a woman in an office, or successful negotiation, or happy news, promotion news being delivered to employees, like just to stay in the world of the office. So they made this little office set and then like thought of all these, again, what would be the story arc that potentially a newspaper would want to buy and use this photo for. And that's like kind of how we have to think of like, what's our woman alone eating salad moment?
Yeah. Because otherwise what you end up doing, and you see it so much on so many video channels, on YouTube channels, is people do use that stuff. And then if you are, as a channel, have bought iStock or something like that.
Yeah, using a stock agency, there is a good chance that all the good photos have been used by other outlets.
And they're also just bad. They're just super cheesy.
Yeah.
So like when you're watching a video and someone's like, whatever. So when you do feel that you need to be free and there's a couple of seagulls like float by in some cheesy scene or something like that, you're like, good God, what the hell is this crap? How did they get this? It's because they bought a service that is going to sell them for like whatever, 30 cents a month or something.
Yeah.
They can buy all the shit and take all the shit they want.
Yeah.
If they're artistic, they'll go out and find it themselves and have the time. But that is incredibly hard to do. So the idea of actually making your business of I'm going to go out and make artistic things rather than iStock to sell to people is great. But then it's a possibility that, like, you know, if you've got like 200 people that buy stuff from you, that means there's 200 people out there using the same photo again. So it's hard to. And then the other thing is that people, when they're making their own YouTube videos, are going to just steal shit from everywhere else. Every time that you see like a watermark on something, it's just because somebody.
It's because people have decided watermark is just part of the image now.
Yeah,
it's
like
totally failed.
Right, and that's why
its assertion of ownership.
That's why you have huge corporations like Warner Brothers saying that like you can't use pictures of Spider-Man on something because we own that, and freaking stop it.
Yeah, well, and we're not interested in using stock photography or stock video for all those reasons. But with this reorganization of the library, comes the idea of like, what if it's not just our archive library, but it's our kind of stock footage repository as well.
And much like our music, that is the important thing to us, is that we create these things. It might be a library that we kind of cannibalize. Well, because also it's
Luzhou specific, so it has to be images of Luzhou.
Yeah.
Which is not, no stock library in the world has that.
Right. I mean, sometimes we have some we don't really have hardly any video from any place else because we didn't really start doing video when we were traveling more. But like we have a lot of photography from 𝗵𝗵cie or Hong Kong or something like that we will cannibalize because we're not going back there to get a couple of shots of Hong Kong.
Right. Yeah.
But whatever. Or here's the other thing is that if we don't have any footage of something, that's when I'm going to draw something. Or do some kind of artistic
so we have
representation.
options.
And that's what's so frustrating when you hear people who are on the YouTube channel next to us that are just stealing crap from somebody else and then going like, but people should pay me for this work.
Right.
You didn't pay anyone to steal that stuff.
Yeah, people shouldn't pay you to steal other people's stuff.
Yeah, so the argument is really complicated in there, but
whatever
it is for us, it's important that we generate original whatever it is to illustrate
and
our
also
point.
like what fits in with our story is going to have to be self-generated because our story is so specific.
Yeah.
We don't want to just have stories, you know, like the perennial obesity story that just features like someone's fat middle. Like,
or
that's the clip art cliche.
Or if you're doing something of we're a China vlog and we're talking about like what we know about living. We live in Luzhou, but we're going to talk about here's what people do in China, and you steal some pictures off from like a newswire of some people in Beijing or something like that. People do that kind of stuff, and it's so disingenuous.
Yeah.
Or just stealing stories and like a lot of commentators just steal like something from another news service. A news service.
Well, that's what the internet hath wrought is saying. As Reuters reports,
Yeah.
So my screenwriting podcast I was listening to the other day, John August is one of the hosts, he's a screenwriter. He has a blog where he wrote a thing, and I mentioned last week, both screenwriters are very active in the WGA leadership, and so he was writing something about the upcoming elections, and he said, Not Dateline. Nikki Fink's old vlog. I forget. It's a super entertainment industry focused vlog. Very gossipy and very notorious for just stealing or making up stuff. They took his blog post and rewrote it like he wrote it for them. And he was like, he found out about it and he was so angry. I think he got them to take it down. But like that's even outlets that do make money, I won't call that professional because that's not professional behavior. But even outlets that make a profit are like, the internet has said we can just say, well, Reuters says blah blah blah. This is my story now. Like, but you didn't do any of that reporting, and you didn't subscribe to Reuters. That's the whole point of Reuters. So like that's why the media is dying.
Yeah, it's like
which is kind of a tangent.
It's something that's pretty important, not just to where we come from, of our old jobs and the stuff that we like.
I guess it's not journalism what we're doing, but it is nonfiction based storytelling, which is,
Well,
draws on the same skill set and is plagued by the same problems of...
And those problems are where it's the same argument of like, is this art? Like, you can argue all day long back and forth whether painting a soup can, a Campbell's soup can, is art.
Right.
Like, but that's a different argument of like, he didn't steal a soup can from a grocery store. Like, it would be even one thing if you went in and you bought a Campbell's soup can and then put it on a podium and went...
Or a urinal.
Or a urinal, exactly. Like, the levels of where this is as art, but like this isn't even calling it art. This is like, I'm stealing somebody else's work and then calling it my own kind of thing.
And not with any artist. I mean, again, yeah, I agree. You could go back and forth on whether that ready-mades are actually art or some elaborate practical joke. But there is like that artistic intent, whereas you're stealing and hoping to present this work as your own and not in a Richard Prince kind of way question the notion of ownership.
Right. You're just you needed a picture because people are going to get bored if they're looking at your dumb face if you're talking about Spider-Man. So you stole pictures of Spider-Man that you didn't even... people would send you that stuff if you just asked, if you called Warner Brothers or Sony or whoever.
Yeah, if you could get on their media list, they're very free with.
Yeah, instead you steal from somebody else who has a watermark on it, who asked Sony to send them this stuff, and then you stole it off their website and clipped it, and then put it on behind yours and said, this is my art, why aren't you paying to watch this?
Yeah, but I'm also not terribly concerned with Warner Brothers being able to make a profit.
Oh, right, yeah.
For us, it is more about the interest in, we can create this library, or we can create this archive. Actually, we can build a library and have like ever-increasing sophisticated imagery.
That's why this is important to us, is because we're trying to do this with the integrity of we are creating what we're doing. Not just because there's no one else in Luzhou that's doing it, that we wanted to steal stuff from.
Yeah, we couldn't steal things.
But because that's important to us to create our own thing. That's why the library is important to us. That's why moving all this stuff from server to drive to back to the other one.
One other thing you brought up when we were talking about this initially is the idea that clip art can expire. Not expire, but like you've used it enough times, or it's maybe 5 years old, so that the present that it reflects doesn't match up with our actual present, or it looks dated in some other stylistic way.
It's like when you're watching Gordon Ramsay and he's yelling at somebody for using like mini carrots with a green top popping off, and he's this is so 1992. What are you doing?
That can happen to imagery as well. So I just thought that was an interesting aspect to this kind of
that comes back around. So at some point it becomes retro. So
so you don't throw it away. You just file it into your retro file.
At some point somebody's going to be looking for butterfly collars from 1970s because they're doing a T-shirt company that has like skateboards on it. So they're like, I need a retro picture.
Yeah. So that's...
Which is also interesting because some of what we're taking, this footage that we're taking, even back to photographs in 2011, in a way, we are documenting the only American English take on what's happening in Luzhou.
And it's also possible, I mean, there's a Luzhou daily newspaper here, but I don't think they take as much
on the street
photography as we do. So we might actually have like the biggest documentation library of Luzhou over the past decade, and that might be something someday.
We had a comment from, I can't remember his name, but somebody who knows, we're not sure whether knows Luzhou, but at least probably from China, because he commented that like something that we would put up, he's like, this looks so 2010. And we're like, it's actually from 2011. You nailed it right on the spot. Great job.
But like at the very least for us, if we want to do some kind of document of over time, like that, don't throw that stuff away. We want to hold on to it. Because we did discuss like, if there's footage we've used too many times, we've gone to that well too many times, do we just even delete it because hard drive space is an issue and going to continue being an issue? And ultimately, no, keep it. You have to keep it because, who knows what project we'll be working on in the future that
it's our duty.
We'll need to like have a flip book of Luzhou progressing from 2011 into 2020 or something. I
Yeah,
don't know.
there's some. We went to the museum here, the Luzhou Museum, in hopes to find some old photography from like 30, 40 years ago or something like that. There wasn't anything on display.
Yeah.
Like there maybe a couple of photographs of like a bunch of officials or something blown up writ large so that it's all blurry and you can't really see what it is. But I mean, if there's an archive, I mean, hopefully we'll live here long enough that maybe we'll find somebody that has, you know, a lot of dusty book of here's what it looked like when it was nothing but horses.
Yeah.